Shalom from Israel to all of the Daystar viewers around the world. I'm Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer and founder of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 25:5, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long." And God says in Zechariah 8:16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak out the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment to peace in your gates. And always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, Iran is sending 4,000 soldiers to fight for Bashar al-Assad in the Syrian civil war. According to the British newspaper The Independent, the hardline Islamic Republic has pledged to send troops belonging to the Revolutionary Guards to assist Syrian forces. The report also stated that Iran is pressuring Assad to open an offensive front against Israel on the Golan Heights.
The Gaza-based Hamas terror group reportedly released a statement calling on Hezbollah to withdraw its combatants from Syria, where they are fighting on behalf of government troops, and to instead join forces in the fight against Israel by keeping their weapons directed against the Zionist enemy. The Associated Press reported that Hamas accused Hezbollah of stoking secular tensions by pledging to support the side of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, who is backed by Shiite Iran, as is Hezbollah. Most of the opposition forces fighting Assad are Sunni Muslims, as are the majority of Hamas supporters. Both Hezbollah and Hamas later downplayed reports of a rift following the unprecedented criticism, saying that their alliance remains as strong as ever. The civil war in Syria has so far claimed the lives of 93,000 people.
Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi has announced that his country will cut all diplomatic ties with Syria in response to the growing demands of Sunni clerics to wage a holy war against the Alawite regime of Bashar al-Assad. In addition to withdrawing the Egyptian ambassador from Damascus and closing the embassy, Cairo announced that it will begin to help the Syrian resistance movement. Morsi also distanced himself from the Hezbollah terrorist organization, whom Egypt has long supported. He called on the Lebanese-based terror group to withdraw its militant fighters from Syria. Leaders in Damascus called Morsi's decision irresponsible and accused him of being allied with Israel. A statement released by the Syrian government said that Morsi's decision serves the goals of Israel and the United States in the Middle East.
Iran's president-elect Hassan Rouhani is being hailed by the international community as a moderate, and the Obama administration is calling his victory a potentially hopeful sign. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is meanwhile expressing great skepticism, telling the Knesset that no one should be deluded nor tempted into wishful thinking. Israel's leaders stress that it must be remembered that it is the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who determines the country's nuclear policy, and that Khamenei disqualified presidential candidates who do not share his own radical views. Rouhani may appear to be the least affiliated with Iran's ruling clerics, said Netanyahu, but he still refers to the State of Israel as the Great Zionist Satan. He concluded by saying that the international community must continue to pressure Iran to halt its nuclear program with the imposition of greater sanctions and the threat of military force, and that as pressure increases against Iran, so will the chance of ending its atomic ambitions, which remain the biggest threat to world peace.
The Director General of the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency has announced that despite sanctions, Iran's nuclear program is steadily advancing. Yukiya Amano said there is a steady increase of capacity and production. He went on to say that he does not think that sanctions have had any impact on Iran's nuclear program. No progress was made in 10 rounds of negotiations, and the IAEA has not scheduled any further talks with Tehran. All eyes have turned to Iran's president-elect, who in his first public statement since his election said that he will not support the halting of the enrichment of uranium. Hassan Rouhani said that his country has done nothing to deserve the sanctions imposed against it by the international community, and that the only country benefiting from the sanctions is Israel. Rouhani insisted that before he will agree to talks with the United States, America must first acknowledge Iran's right to nuclear proliferation.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu briefed the Knesset on the stalled negotiations with the Palestinians last week. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has been pressuring Jerusalem to re-enter negotiations with Ramallah. But according to Netanyahu, the Palestinians are sabotaging that opportunity, saying that the Palestinians are insisting on preconditions that cannot be met in order to prevent a revival of the talks. He added that every time the Israeli government has met Palestinian demands, they made additional ones.
A new survey reflects that an overwhelming majority of Israelis oppose the release of Palestinian prisoners. This comes as the Palestinian Authority is demanding the release of terrorists before it will return to negotiations with Israel. According to the Smith Research poll, 85% of Israeli Jews feel that the demand to free terrorists as a precondition to peace talks is unacceptable. 57% of Israeli Jews strongly oppose the release of terrorists, in addition to 28% who oppose the mere suggestion of doing so. Israelis realize that most prisoners who are freed resume terrorist activity, and they don't believe that agreeing to this concession will help Israel in making any sort of lasting peace with the Palestinians.
Despite the stalemate in peace negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians, Israel's Minister of Finance Yair Lapid met with his Palestinian counterpart Shukri Bishara last week to discuss unfreezing economic cooperation between the two. Lapid encouraged the Palestinians to cooperate with Israel on several initiatives that he described as mutually beneficial. The Palestinian Authority has announced that it is more than $4.2 billion in debt and is again unable to pay the salaries of its municipal employees. The Palestinian finance minister says that the PA will be asking donor countries for additional funding and that taxes will also be raised throughout Palestinian-controlled areas of Judea and Samaria. Nablus residents protested over the high cost of living and what they call the government corruption and misuse of funds.
Israeli Air Force bases across the country played host to special honored guests last week. More than 10,000 Holocaust survivors were invited to tour 12 air bases throughout the country. They met with Air Force pilots and soldiers and were addressed by IAF Commander Major General Amir Eshel. The event was organized by the IDF, the Joint Distribution Committee in Israel, Yad Vashem, and the Center for Holocaust Survivor Organizations in Israel. General Eshel told the group that the state of Israel is facing challenges both near and far, but unlike in World War II, the state of Israel is safe because the IDF is strong and the Air Force has proven itself in the past and proves itself every day. He went on to say that we realize that we need to do whatever it takes so that the horrors that our people have endured in the past will not happen again.
Google has purchased the Israeli GPS application Waze for $1.1 billion. The internet giant revealed its intent to acquire the company just days after another $1 billion deal was rejected from the social networking Facebook Corporation. That deal fell apart when Waze refused to relocate from Israel to the U.S. Silicon Valley. Support and technical staff at the mobile mapping company will now continue to operate from the Waze Ra'anana base. The popular interactive smartphone application has tripled the number of subscribers over the past 12 months, increasing its membership from 15 to 45 million users, and was downloaded by more than 1.5 million users in March alone.
National Geographic has named Tel Aviv as one of the top 10 beach cities in the world. Praised for its clean, full-service beaches and its 13-kilometer promenade, Tel Aviv is listed among beach cities such as Miami, Honolulu, and Barcelona. The article raved about Tel Aviv's dynamic nightlife and its diverse restaurants and cafes. Tel Aviv has been climbing in popularity in the international community. Last year, The Lonely Planet ranked Tel Aviv as one of the most vibrant cities in the world.
Jerusalem hosted the Formula One Road Show last week. The event was dubbed as the Peace Road Show, and featured world-class cars and drivers representing Ferrari, Mercedes, and Audi. One highlight of the show was the display of race car models developed by the student race car team at Israel's Ben Gurion University. Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat said that the capital joins other leading cities in the world by holding motorsport events that attract hundreds of thousands of spectators who contribute greatly to the city's economy, tourism, and world image. Saying that history was made, Barkat added that there is no one who doesn't get excited by seeing world champions driving race cars along the walls of the old city in the background. More than 100,000 Muslims, Christians, and Jews lined the route, standing together to watch the show, added the mayor, saying that the event succeeded in bringing people together with a message of peace and coexistence. Many of the Formula One drivers spoke about their own excitement to be in the holy city and of its unique energy. And that concludes the news portion of our show. Please stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein, and we're here on another beautiful day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is Pastor Umar Malindi. Pastor, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Pastor Malindi, you were involved in a vicious attack in Uganda when acid was thrown in your face by radical Islamists because of your stance on Israel. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened to you?
Yes, I'm glad to be here and for the treatment I've got in Israel by Israeli doctors and the assistance by Israeli government and people, the congregations here. What happened to me was that I was attacked at my church in Kampala, Uganda. My church is based on Entebbe Road. Because of my conversion from Islam and because of my support of Israel, I was attacked in a holistic terrorist attack by extremist Muslims who wanted to kill me. But I am glad that I am alive today and my health is coming back well.
It's amazing to see that the Israeli medical system has been able to help you in the way it has. I've met you a year ago, and already the transformation is amazing. You're speaking, you're active again, and I believe that they predict that within 6 months, pretty much a lot of the scarring will be gone as well. How has been the medical treatment here, and why do you think the Israeli government has been able to do this for you?
Yeah, this is very amazing. There are two reasons. One, I have realized that the Israelis have respect to human life. A number of people have been treated here, not only me, but specifically on my side, is because many times I've been here and I've been standing with the nation of Israel, and I have many friends in Israel, and the treatment here is so amazing. The medical facilities here are very amazing, because when I was in Uganda, we wanted a better facility. They took me to India and the situation was worsening. I almost died because when I came in Israel, I could not talk, I could not eat, I could not see. I was eating through a straw. So I have got all my skin from here up to here removed and then planting another skin. But I'm glad that I am going to be well again and do my work because of the expertise of the Israeli doctors and hospitals here.
You know, we see the attacks of radical Islam against Christians all over the world, yet we don't read about it in the news much. Why do you think there's this disconnect from the plight of Christians in Africa, in Asia, in all over the world?
You see, I was born a Muslim and I was trained as a sheikh, but there is a reality which people are underplaying. They talk about a religion of peace, but I want to make this very clear that there is a teaching that teaches violence against other people. There is what we call intolerance among the teachings of Islam. And people are downplaying this, but this is the trouble cause of all that is happening, because when you convert, you're persecuted. Anybody who doesn't think like other people think, they think is the wrong one who deserves to die. I think this is the main cause why there is a problem and a fight against Israel in the Middle East. So these are issues that people must not take lightly.
We also see something that really doesn't make sense to us. We see these radical Islamist dictatorships, and then we see a democracy like Israel, yet the international community condemns Israel and supports these radical Islam dictatorships. Why is there a misconnect here?
Yeah, in my view is that because Islam threatens extremist Muslims, threaten people, so the people decided to compromise instead of speaking the truth. And in my view, as an ex-Muslim, this is why radical Islam is growing, because people are not telling the truth, but they only cover the lies, and as a result, they continue to motivate terrorists instead of fighting terrorism. So people must speak out and speak the wrongs and tell the people the right thing to do, because if Israel is fighting in self-defense and others are attacking it, that means that the attackers must be stopped before you stop the one who fights in self-defense. So these are the issues which must be addressed.
We see in Africa that Christian communities are under attack there. What do you think is the future of the Christian communities in Africa?
The future of the Christian communities in Africa is to raise boldly against the intolerant spirit that wants to dominate Africa with a one religion system. And this is the very problem even in the Western world, is to say that let's promote coexistence and no religion must dominate the other, but people must live together in harmony, in coexistence. Why is it that there are many countries in the world where there is only one religion that governs the government, even the society, and other religious people are suppressed, are tortured, are oppressed, and nobody is talking about this?
Pastor Melinde, there are literally tens of millions of people watching the show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
The message is that we must preach peace and tell those people who persecute others because of their religion to stop it. Like many Christians are suffering in the Middle East and are tortured, are killed, and nobody is talking about this. And these countries are members of the United Nations, but even the presidents sitting there are not addressing this. The spirit that preaches violence must be addressed before we begin to address or talk about people who defend themselves in self-defense.
Thank you, Pastor Melinde, for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, shining light from Israel.
Modern transportation is driven almost entirely by conventional fuel. As a result, oil is considered the most strategic commodity in use today. Remove the fuel supply, and sophisticated economies will grind to a halt. And here lies the problem. Besides the fact that fossil fuel emissions are a major factor in the advancement of global warming, almost 80% of the world's crude oil reserves are situated in countries of the Middle East, all of which are undemocratic and are openly hostile to the West. They use the revenue they generate from sales to acquire weapons and sponsor terrorism. Moreover, every time one of the oil-producing countries wants to pressure the developed world, it cuts back production and causes gasoline prices to skyrocket. Not a healthy situation for a nation that needs both security and fuel at reasonable prices.
The world economy is strangled by oil prices. And without getting oil back in order, that is, getting oil down or eliminating oil, it will keep strangling the world economy.
This is a recent motor show in Beijing, China. China, followed by India, is today the fastest growing importer of petroleum, and in the not too distant future could be the world's largest consumer. US security officials have long said China's escalating thirst for fuel will drive it ever closer to terrorist-sponsoring governments like Iran, to such an extent that it will compromise US-China relations. And by the way, this is what commuters in Beijing have to endure on their roads. In some places, the pollution is so dense that visibility is restricted to less than 100 meters. In 2009, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that Israel is taking the lead to help the world lose its dependence on oil.
We set a course for a 10-year program where we put between $40 and $50 million a year into research, development, support of fledgling companies, and most importantly of all is international cooperation, both on policy issues, technology issues, and explaining the importance of this.
Several universities, private companies and startups have been involved in alternative energy research for years. The Israeli electric car enterprise Better Place is one of the participants. Others have only just recently joined the race.
The idea is to create another startup nation, not just on ICT, but now on technologies to replace oil. And there's so many of them already on the way that we believe we can have an impact very quickly.
We believe that we can produce this oil, actually this finished product, between $35 and $40 per barrel. And today Brent crude is $115 per barrel. And with time, our costs will go down because it's technologically and R&D based, whereas conventional oils are based just on the available supply, which is short. Demand is going up because you have countries like China and India with a growing population wants to have cars, and the amount of available conventional oil is going down.
Yossi Hollander believes that for the short term, using natural gas for transport is the way to go.
Everybody always joked that Israel is the only place in the Middle East with no oil and gas. That joke is finally over. Israel has found significant amounts of natural gas in the Mediterranean. And the opportunity for Israel is to actually convert its fleet away from oil, its car fleet, its truck fleet, to natural gas or to byproducts of natural gas, for example, methanol.
The transportation experts say now is the time for the government to act. Once the decision is made, they say, within less than 10 years, the country's entire fleet of vehicles can be powered by electricity or by fuel derived from natural gas, and will prove to the world how quickly it can be done, and especially how economical it is.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
Welcome to another episode of the ICEJ report, and today we have a very special guest with us today, Mr. Mashi El-Shafai. Mashi, you are the International and Global Director of One Free World International. It's a great joy and honor to have you with us today. Welcome.
It's my pleasure, thank you.
Well, Mashi, you have a very unique story. You are born in Egypt. You got saved in Egypt, and then you had a very unique and dramatic experience with the authorities in Egypt, which brought you at the end to Israel. Tell us a little bit about your life story.
I converted to Christianity in the age of 18 years old in Cairo. I built one of the largest underground human rights organization in Egypt. I was arrested in August 18, 1998. I was tortured severely by the Egyptian government for 7 days underground in the Egyptian prison. Wow. They put me in house arrest for another 8 months. They gave me the death penalty. I was able to escape out of the house arrest from Cairo to Sinai. In Sinai, I stole jet ski and I crossed the border from Taba to Eilat. I surrendered to the Israeli Authority. Through the intervention of Amnesty International, United Nations, and the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, I became a free man, and the International Christian Embassy took me in as one of their children under their wing.
I remember this was 13 years ago.
Absolutely, that's what 13 years ago, and I became member of the family. Like back home in Egypt, my family disowned me. But ICEJ gave me the family that I lost.
Oh, praise God.
Praise God.
Well, you moved on to Canada and you established one of the most amazing human rights organizations in Canada, which is being a voice for the persecuted church in the Arab world. Tell us a little bit more about your ministry and what is One Free World International?
One Free World International, born out of the persecution, my personal experience. I always have a dream to become a human rights lawyer to defend the people that was in the same position like myself. Right now, we are an organization that helping the persecuted Christians, standing against the persecution, standing for the right of freedom of religion and the right of the minority, and as well against the rising of the combating anti-Semitism. We have branches in 28 different countries. We went to Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq. We confronted these governments.
And sometimes you did this, you have been personally under attack. People shot at you personally.
Absolutely. I get shot at 7 times in the last 5 years. We did as well rescue missions on the ground. One of the biggest stories was a little girl by the name Niha. She was 2 years and a half. She was raped because her father is a Christian.
Wow.
And we was able to rescue her and her family to get them to Canada.
This is an amazing story. Well, everybody speaks today about an Arab Spring in the Middle East, and some people still have hope that democracy is spreading all around the region. Tell us a little bit more. How do you see the region? What is the real story about the Middle East today?
All of us against dictatorship. We all want the dictatorship to leave, but the problem, once you take a dictatorship out, you create a political vacuum. Who's using this political vacuum is the Muslim extremists, and that's what we see happening.
It's the Muslim Brotherhood.
It's the Muslim Brotherhood, and we see this happening in Egypt, in Tunis, very soon in Syria, and so on and so forth. And this is put the Christian minority, the Baha'i minority, different minorities in jeopardy and in great persecution. And it's also putting Israel in the front lines.
How many Christians today, as we are living, are under persecution and are under pressure?
There is one persecuted Christian every 3 minutes worldwide. Between 200 to 300 million persecuted Christians worldwide. They are in very deep dark night, but they still have the candle of the Lord. Our enemy have very strong weapons, it's true. Our enemy have very strong army, it's true. But we have the Lord Almighty.
Amen.
It's in my belief that they can kill the dreamer, but nobody can kill the dream.
You just heard about the situation of persecuted Christians all around the world. And I want to appeal to you personally today to make a difference for those people. Many of them are suffering. Many of them, they have families which are separated. And you can support them through organizations like One Free World International or through the International Christian Embassy. Why don't you write out a check right now to help the persecuted church in the Middle East and pray for them like never before? We are your embassy here in Jerusalem. May the Lord bless you out of Zion.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all your Israel updates.